there was a sighting in Fukushima prior to the reactor there melting down. And as you pointed out,
was one random American on vacation.
Of course it's an American.
American.
Of course it's a fucking obnoxious American that does it.
Yeah, so if I can remember, basically he was there visiting a friend who was teaching English there. He happened to be out and about, and around those reactors he saw this strange apparently the creature swooped down, and he had to protect this young woman he was with his jacket and covered his head.
Of course the American says that he's the hero. Of course that he says that he's the gentleman that protects the woman.
He heard this train-like screech. Very consistent with other
a loud
stories.
whooshing sound and a terrible screeching.
And then he single-handedly stopped the train with his own bare hands and then shot it twice.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Chaotic Underground, where we discuss supernatural, aliens, all kinds of weird myths, suburban legends, and things like that. So, if you're not a fan of ska, it's the spooky creatures that exist in our neighborhoods. And in this case, we are talking about Mothman. It is part 2. We're featuring our friend Crip Zed, who is a huge fan of Mothman. Look at this guy. Look at him waving over there, or it might be up there. Really, I don't know where I'm going. Anyways, the point is, last week we talked about the initial, story of Mothman, its presence in West Virginia, and how it came to be. I find myself very skeptical. There is a lot of history to Mothman. There's some movies featuring some actors and shit like that. But mostly I feel like it was an excuse for people to get out of trouble, or teenagers specifically. But there apparently is precedence for Mothman in modern society, in modern events, and today we are going to be discussing that. So without further ado, let's get this gentleman with his hat and his glasses and his mouth on the screen talking about Mothman.
Are you okay?
That was a lot of further ado.
We got there.
I
Is
appreciate
the
the
Mothman
patience.
in the room right now?
Look,
Are
there's a
you
gun off
Mothman?
screen.
Threatening you with these eye lasers.
Blink
Is it
twice
enough,
if
Mr. Mothman.
Blink twice with Mothman's off camera right now.
Look, I'm having fun apparently imitating 90s radio DJs. Give me a break.
But anyway, Crip said, welcome.
Thank you for having me back. I know it was touch and go. My people had to talk to your people. We had to get the fees lined up.
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about?
Wow.
The last episode was just last week.
Yeah, just last week. There's been no
Just a week
time
ago.
lapse between episodes.
Absolutely
No
nothing
time at
has
all.
changed.
Nothing has changed in anybody's lives. Pay no attention to the new room that I'm in.
Pay no attention to my hair being like 2 inches longer.
Absolutely. Don't forget the very thick thigh anime girl in my background. That's normal.
Yeah,
That was
all
there
normal.
before.
What? No.
What?
Of course it was. Just last
What are, you,
week.
what are you talking about? What do you mean?
Excuse me. Like, I don't understand.
I want someone to channel like NoHo Hank from fucking Barry. That's all I want.
Anyway. Hey,
That would be the
Mothman.
best friend. Yeah, so like Steven said, we left off last week talking about kind of the origins. I think our kind of goal going into part 2 was that wasn't the end of Mothman, right? Like,
Yep.
One of the few cryptids that has just kept coming back, and in a lot of different places. It's not like Sasquatch, who, well, also in like everywhere, it never went away. There was never a gap where people weren't seeing Bigfoots somewhere. But we're going to start off by going across an entire ocean from where we last saw Mothman. And we're going to settle down in Pripyat, in Ukraine. Specifically, the Chernobyl power plant.
Oh shit.
Okay, wait. So the Chernobyl power plant, they're saying like Mothman had something to do with Chernobyl. Is that what you're getting at?
Apparently, beginning in early April 1986, people in and around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant began to see a mysterious creature that they described as a large, dark, and mutated man with gigantic wings and piercing eyes, specifically piercing red eyes, but that kind of felt obvious at this point. We can't have creatures without red eyes.
Were the sightings before or after the actual meltdown?
So the actual meltdown occurred on April 26th, 1986, and these sightings, the most specific I've got is in early April 1986.
Okay. So that aligns with what the lore is that we know about Mothman, is that it appears shortly before a disaster. That's interesting.
Is there a source for the sighting? I guess is the question. Like who was the source? What was it? Was it the town drunkard? Was it the
This is the 80s. There are no sources.
Was it the town cokehead? I don't know. Like it's the 80s, right?
We didn't have accurate sources until 2010 at the earliest.
You assume people in the Ukraine can
afford
Coke. Like, what the fuck, man? Jesus, I couldn't afford Coke in the 80s.
Yeah, definitely.
Jesus. I mean, I was young and I didn't know what Coke was.
Dissing Ukraine here.
You were 5.
Shut up.
So,
I was a twinkle in my father's trailer park dwelling eye.
Jesus.
Go ahead, Chris.
he was just a teenage dirtbag.
It was a teenage. Oh no, Steven was a teenage dirtbag.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought you were answering my question. My bad. Okay.
So the only name that I can find in relation to this is one of the people who claimed to have seen the creature was a firefighter who responded to the disaster, who was Lieutenant Vladimir Pravich, who died of a radiation overdose on the 9th of May. So around 2 weeks later.
So the only actual cited source is a person that it was the same day as the meltdown, not prior. I gotcha.
Yeah. Just apparently the people who would see this creature would have horrible nightmares and threatening phone calls, which I guess the KGB has their own Men in Black division.
They are Men in Black division.
Yeah. They make people disappear all the time.
But I also hear nuclear radiation gives you horrible nightmares as well.
I would be hard-pressed to believe that it wouldn't. I'm in agonizing pain in a hospital for a condition they may not be able to treat. I'm probably going to be stressed out and having horrible nightmares.
So these are just kind of like ephemeral accounts of this like supposed winged beast with piercing eyes.
Yes.
And everything. There's no specific people.
A unique name called the Blackbird of Chernobyl.
And remind me, because it's been a week. When did the Point Pleasant, West Virginia? That was the 70s.
I want to say it was 1976.
Okay, so this is
a year or two off on that.
So this is 10 years later. This is a decade later.
This is 20 years later. It was 1967 apparently that the bridge collapse happened.
Oh, okay, so this is 21 years later.
Yeah,
1986.
So they see the supposedly, for the sake of this episode, they supposedly see Mothman in the Chernobyl area, and then Chernobyl melts down. So this was after that, and do you? I guess the question is were people instantly linking like, oh, it's Mothman, he's back, or was this like
back.
What? He's back. The Mothman strikes back, you know, or the Mothmaning, or something, you know.
Mothman to Disaster Boogaloo.
Yeah, Disaster Boogaloo. Yeah. So like, in any of your research, did any account of like these witnesses being like, "Hey, I heard about this place called Point Pleasant in America." I don't want to do a very offensive Russian accent, so
use your Ukrainian accent
or Ukrainian accent, like it's topical.
Let's not do any accents. Let's just save ourselves some trouble.
Yeah, but so like, or was this like their own phenomena that was very isolated? This was before the internet, of course, so like it had to be isolated in a way.
And at this point, if I understand the dissolution of the USSR timeline, Ukraine would have still been a part of it, and therefore the Iron Curtain would still be there. Like, there is no information flowing between United States and Russia at this time outside of what spies are telling each other.
Yeah, my question was this published somewhere, or was this like 20 years later some guy on YouTube was like, well, actually there was this guy in Ukraine right before Chernobyl and he said, like, is it actually like written somewhere from that time?
That's the problem. It's outside of the Point Pleasant sightings, there is so little actual documentation on these sightings.
Dude, same issue with us when we talked to Men in Black. I mean, you have the original sighting and then you just have like a bunch of stories that came up with no publication tied to them.
These are grounds for fiction. That's what it is, hands down. These are grounds for fiction. They are grounds for short stories, and excuses for people who are trying to find something to kind of downplay a huge issue. I mean, I joked about the sexual awakening of teenagers in Point Place, but it's true. It's true. We will find an excuse. What is it?
Point location. Point Pleasant.
Point Pleasant. I don't fucking know. Point Place was the place in Wisconsin in that 70s show, wasn't it?
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
Okay.
Yes,
for the
Stephen.
sake of this episode, yes.
Thank you, everyone, for your accurate backgrounds. I appreciate it.
Misty Stephen.
So from the site, morbidcuriosity.com, they talk about a archaeologist who has been working at Chernobyl over the years. He's taken multiple trips there, and he said, his name is Robert Maxwell. He said the story goes that many of the workers in the control room saw a supernatural being in the skies over Chernobyl in the days before April 26, 1986. Additionally, they reported they had seen this dreadful creature right before the explosion. And that Blackbird has developed into one of those somewhat safe urban legends where if you try to hunt for evidence, it might not be available because apparently the workers are deceased or perhaps the sightings were never formally reported. So you fall into that same pit of who knows. But this is an actual, archaeologist who dedicated his life to science, talking about this story, not just some tabloid reporter.
Or the town drunk, or
the town drunk, right?
My main source that I could find the full story on was Creepypasta Wiki.
Yeah.
And I was like,
of course.
It's challenging because a lot of the stuff is, like you said, the Iron Curtain really was a big part of everything, especially like when referring to things like Chernobyl. I mean, some of the things about Chernobyl didn't come out until like the 2000s and even later. Because probably some weird like backdealing of like or like time frame, like this information is released after a certain period of time, like a thing you encounter a lot with top secret documents and the government and things like that, is that information is there, but it does not become available until a certain amount of time has passed. So it leaves a certain degree of mystique, if we're being honest. Like, you're relying on hearsay and internet forum postings and shit like that. Like it's hard. It's hard to take it seriously, if we're being honest. I mean, and that applies. That's not just a Mothman. That's Sasquatch, Yetis, what is it? Nessie, aliens of every
You just
form
gave our
and
entire
shape.
season lineup. Thank you.
Absolutely.
But that's the fun part of what we do is of course we got that skepticism in the back of our mind, but it is that kind of taking things at face value as like a what if.
My biggest thing. Sorry to cut you off, Stephen. My biggest thing about it is considering, like, let's consider the culture in America in the 1980s. We broadcast ourselves as like we're the free country, like we're just very out there. We're an out there people. Then you take an entirely different culture, like the Russian culture, and the Iron Curtain and everything.
Mhm.
And a lot of this stuff, and I'm not trying to put the tinfoil hat on, and I'm not saying I believe this because I'm weird about conspiracy theories and everything, but a lot of the stuff, like, you might not be finding shit, especially if it was like in places like Russia, because they were redacting a lot of information too.
Yeah.
If in a hypothetical situation this was real, and
they don't have a public newspaper in USSR that's going out and like talking to the locals that they're publishing to the country.
Yeah,
like,
they don't have like a P-rag at the USSR or anything like that.
And they're obviously going to be, especially in times of the Cold War, they're not going to be widely spreading news of any failures on their end.
Oh no. They literally covered up Chernobyl to the rest of the country for quite a while.
Yeah.
I mean,
like, how long did it take?
Go ahead.
Go for it. No. It was a nonsensical question. I just wanted to know how long did it take for the U.S. to find out about Chernobyl.
I mean, the reality.
That's a good question.
That is a very good question. That's not a nonsensical question. That's a good question. So the point I'm getting at is, like, look, more often than not, I seem to be the most skeptical out of everyone, but I find myself enamored with the concept of the possibility. Like, we're talking about the idea of a creature that kind of highlights possible tragedy, and I'm curious to know if it ever predates positivity. But you also like fold that into things like we talked about the Men in Black before. I can acknowledge that they talked about like people writing in magazines and things like that, but there is some so there's definitely some like questionable video like evidence. We covered that as well. But the reality is there is some that makes you question it. Like, and there are enough situations in real life, enough circumstantial situations that make you go, maybe. And I enjoy that mystery. I enjoyed about ghosts. I enjoyed about monsters, about things like that. And I as much as I kind of question Mothman, I really kind of want it to be a little bit more mysterious, a little bit more involved in real life. And
circle back and answer the question, though, the U.S. found out April 29th.
3 days.
3 days. Due to spy satellites.
Damn.
Well, kind of. So it happened 26th. On the 27th, this radiation is spreading wide. The 28th, Swedish government officials start picking up signs of this radiation coming into the country and report it. And Russia admits to what happened, or USSR admits to what's happening. And then US investigating with the spy satellites sees it on the 29th. So it didn't take long, and not just because we had satellites over them, but because that's how far the radiation had already leaked across.
Yeah. Like, this shit was so bad, there was no hiding it, essentially.
But this isn't a Chernobyl episode.
I mean, could you imagine like being Gorbachev? Like, fuck.
No.
Well, it goes into it in that mini series that we were talking about on HBO, and how he's like.
Yeah.
He rubbed that birthmark.
To circle back to Mothman, was there anything else after they spot it, that what it was supposedly is Mothman for all intents and purposes? Was there anything else strange happening with that? I know you said that there wasn't much research happening, or that there wasn't much coming up. But I would love to hear what your opinions are, because you are the Mothman guy.
Yes.
Yeah. Based off of Point Pleasant experiences and the way the stories goes, like how do you think a Russian would respond? Nothing against Russians, just saying that, being very clear. But how do you think Russians would respond to something like this? Because like their culture is 9 times different than ours. Because I feel like American citizens, like we just believe it. We just take it and run. And
shit.
Not to put you on the spot, but I'm just curious.
So the reason I find it interesting but weird,
Mothman is KGB.
Exactly. So I can understand a lack of reports, because what society was like under USSR. Like, you see something weird and you go tell somebody. If they don't believe you and think you're wasting time, you might be going to the gulag. Like,
yeah, exactly.
So I can kind of see why there wouldn't be a lot of reports, but also, why does the first news site I find what appears to be a Vietnamese tabloid?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it would be picked up by more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did find that news.com Australia interviewed that archaeologist as well.
Was there anything critical on that? Like, did you get? Is there any information that the guy gave?
There's really not. Like,
okay, so this Russian archaeologist clearly had the KGB, and again, I'm the internet. Take this at face value. This is me waxing philosophical and theorizing. Like, I feel like if he was being interviewed, like, there you get the red sniper dot on his forehead kind of a thing, you know. It's like, Brandon, I've never lived in USSR Russia ever, so I'm like ignorantly talking about this, but I just like, I don't know, that's kind of what I'm getting out of it.
Well, I mean, to his point, like, imagine you're living in this era of the USSR, your government is on the brink of war with everyone, you're constantly advancing your technology, as far as you know, way more advanced than any other civilization out there. You're on cutting edge of nuclear technology, we got all kinds of crazy stuff, and you see this crazy creature or object or whatever. It might be a military object, and to Crips's point, you report that to someone and that's a military object, they're going to pull you in to make sure you don't tell anybody else. So nobody's saying anything.
No one likes trouble. And with that in mind, is there other examples? Like, clearly Chernobyl there's a lot of interference with Chernobyl. Are there more, quantifiable experiences with more?
So weirdly, yes. There's actually one closer to our original sightings in Point Pleasant that occurred also not far from Chernobyl, but on not that close either. It was in Freiburg, Germany. There in 1978. This is about 12 years later now from the original sighting.
So this is before Chernobyl, after Point Pleasant. Gotcha.
Yes. So early morning, September 10th, 1978, workers at a mine...
Set the scene. Like, what did it smell like? Was the sun
was it snowing?
Not nice. Germany in September, it was probably like... Oh, wait, you're all American. I don't know American temperatures. It was probably like 15 degrees Celsius.
Just take yours minus like 20.
Yeah.
Bruh, I'm both, so I understand what you mean.
It was 59 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, something like that. We're going down to the mine, so presumably I'm gonna just say it's a coal mine because the workers are...
What other mines are there?
Yeah, exactly. What else do you
They're
mine
mining
for? Nothing else comes out of the ground.
Moisture if you're in Star Wars.
They're mining pumice so you can get stuff to rub your dry skin.
You mine hummus? Do you mine hummus?
They're mining chlamydia.
Hummus comes from Germany?
Does now.
What?
From the ground?
It's from the famous hummus region of Germany.
Welcome to chaotic misinformation.
I'm glad that no one listened to me.
What? Oh, sorry, Steven.
Nothing. No, don't. I don't want to repeat that shit. I'm just
no callbacks, please.
Just keep going. Just keep going.
I'll find it in the edit. Don't worry.
Workers are approaching the entrance to their mine to begin the day of work, and as they get closer, they notice what appears to be a tall man in a very dark trench coat standing in front of the mine entrance. And unsure as to why there would be a man there, a few of them approach, and when they get a few feet away, what they thought was a trench coat flings open and unfurls to reveal a giant set of wings.
So it was an angel or a Mothman?
Exactly. They stood there and just stared at this mythical creature that seems like something that would come out of folktale. And as they do, it lets out a series of just ear-destroying shrieks that sound like 50 different people screaming, and the emergency brakes on a train. They're like, holy shit, I'm just not dealing with this today.
So they run away.
Yeah, they run the hell away.
I would too.
And from what is described as a safe distance, they see the wings fold back and it stands still again. And days later, I'm not even sure if it's days. It might even be the same day. I'd have to go and find the newspaper article I saw for this again. Which, yeah, weirdly, this one actually had a newspaper article. There was a collapse in that mine.
So another disaster after a sighting.
There was a newspaper article on the mine collapsing or on the Mothman sighting? Okay, I just want to make sure. So one other thing you said, the sound, the brake screeching, that is a constant reoccurrence in all these stories. Like, that is one thing that is just, besides the physical appearance, the dark black body with the red eyes, but the sound is the same in every testimony of this.
That's really cool and weirdly consistent, like how in the Giant of Kandahar you'd see cultures that all have a giant with like flaming red hair.
I read of a sighting in Turkey where they said it sounded like a public transit bus like coming to a screeching halt. Like it's the exact same thing.
One of the more recent sightings I read about was in Mexico in 2009. This 15-year-old who was driving a car. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know 15-year-olds could drive in Mexico. That was something new for me.
Oh yeah, you could do anything in Mexico.
It was specifically in La Junta Guerrero, Chihuahua, which I don't know why it says Guerrero and then in brackets Chihuahua. I don't know American geography, and I really don't know Mexican geography. I'll be honest with you.
I think it's just a mess with white people. Like, we could just throw Chihuahua in here in parentheses.
I live close enough to Mexico. It'd be funny if they bring it up on a podcast eventually.
Look,
that is a village within the area of Chihuahua.
I mean, like, there's the running jokes that Canada is America's hat, and America is Canada's pants, and Mexico is America's shoes.
Yes.
I read it on Reddit once. I didn't say it. Reddit said
America's beard.
Yes. We'll go with
what the fuck am I listening to right now?
Mothman.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't shake your head, Ryan.
You didn't know that Mothman propagated all the sayings about Canada being America's hat and Mexico is America's beard?
And Canada just says...
Don't they teach that in school?
Canada just says streamer across it.
Yeah.
Let's trust the guy with the streamer hat.
Trust me, I'm on a podcast, therefore I have to be right.
Sorry.
They brought me in as a pundit on Mothman specifically, therefore I am an expert by just that.
Yeah. People believe what we say, right?
So we count to around April 10th, 2009. This young student at Universidad Regional del Norte, I think.
You did well. You did well.
He claims that a strange humanoid chased him for 15 minutes on the evening of March 6th.
On foot or wings?
Turns out he's driving his Jeep Liberty, and he sees a bulk figure on the road in the middle of the road in front of him that looks like a hunched over man covered in a blanket. And it suddenly stands up and takes 2 leaps towards him and whips open these wings that he describes as similar to a bat. And he tries to...
a butthole with an eyeball in it.
Exactly.
I've heard this one before.
That's right. This guy knows what we're talking about.
He floors it in his car and just tries to get the hell away from this thing because what the actual fuck just happened. But apparently this thing is keeping pace with him. And this is a 2009 Jeep Liberty. That's a modern car. It's not like in Point Pleasant where it's like, oh yeah, we were going 100 miles an hour when
they're
like 40.
67 Camaro SS.
Yeah.
They were.
Get in the Camaro. Dad says home by 8.
Get in the Camaro. Dad says home by 8.
Get in the Camaro.
It's a Jeep livery, Cribs. Don't go crazy.
Get in the Jeep livery.
I mean,
Dad says
yes.
home by 8.
But so this thing is keeping up with him, lowering his Jeep Liberty, and it's like
0 to 60 in 20 seconds.
Apparently, it could keep pace with him for 15 minutes, and then it flew away. No idea why. Two other witnesses for this occurrence they didn't see it, but apparently at the time they heard it. Their names are Angela Mendez and Viviana Ledesma. They claim to have heard the humanoid squealing from an apple grove near the Minyaka Cemetery. If this is the only place they exist, this story's bullshit. There's literally no reason to believe it. But apparently, a joint mission was undertaken by members of the police and civil defense of the municipality of Guerrero in the state of Chihuahua. That is a long series of words that they were trying to find the whereabouts of this strange entity.
Interesting. So they took it serious, apparently.
Yeah, so according to initial reports, the flying entity had a lair in the caves of the mountainous area of the Minyaka region, but they never found trace of it.
Was there any, and I'm sorry if I missed, was there any disasters or anything recorded?
So, yes.
Okay.
Cast your minds back to the ye old year of 2009, and you will find that it was not so different from the year of 2020. There was another global pandemic sweeping the world.
Okay.
The H1N1 virus.
But that was global.
Correct. But this happened days before an outbreak happened in their town.
H1N1, that was swine flu.
Swine flu.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. One detail I found about this one that I love is that the original witness's family is well regarded in the community. And I was like, does that mean their kid's not gonna lie about a fucking monster?
I guess like my ignorant mind was like narrowing it down to like, oh, he only appears during natural disasters. I didn't realize that like full on like pandemics could be a thing.
Yeah, that's where my mind was going to, because
example of this I found.
Yeah, exactly. And this one just seems like a little too convenient. Like, oh yeah, like it wasn't like the origin point for H1N1 or anything. Yeah. It's like he didn't appear and then it just showed up in this village and then spread across the world. Like this village just happened to contract around the same time. As this, quote unquote.
I honestly believe this is the weakest connection, but it is the most modern I've been able to find. It's just like the 160 different sightings reported in Chicago since 2011.
Yeah. Since 2011, I was reading about it. I was reading about Chicago, and I think the earliest one I saw was like 2018. So 2011 is pretty crazy. And so like I was just in Chicago not long ago. And
did you see anything? Was there a Mothman?
No, I didn't personally see one, but but now since I've been researching this, we were planning a trip back, and I was like, well, we just got to stay off the bridges, and I was like, Chicago's all bridges.
It's all bridges and Wayne.
Isn't there a movie called 21 Bridges about Chicago?
It's a lot of bridges. There's way more than 21, I assure you.
Question.
Jesus.
In your to kind of circle back to H1N1, question: did you happen to catch any sightings of like right before COVID-19 happened or anything?
That's a good question, and I didn't think to look for that.
Oh,
because I've been trying to forget about it.
Yeah, no. In what I researched, 2019 was the most recent thing I saw, and that was still Chicago.
Maybe that's why it was in Chicago.
There also was the sighting I was talking about in Turkey earlier. Mm-hmm. There was some Mothman-like sightings in 2019, but nothing just like right before COVID that really were in any place that had anything to do with COVID.
There was that photo in 2016 that was found, or that was taken in West Virginia, I believe.
Oh, that was Trump.
It's his real form.
Is there any other decent examples of this creature existing in modern times, or even reasonable amount of times? Because what I'm getting from this entire experience is that the marketing team behind Mothman is fucking fantastic. That's
and especially because you got to remember, when was the movie? When did the
2001? Somewhere between 2001 and 2004.
And the sightings have since increased.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, and so has social media and news outlets and tabloids and things like that. So of course, like, that's to be expected. We talked before the episode about there was a sighting in Fukushima prior to the reactor there melting down. And as you pointed out,
was one random American on vacation.
Of course it's an American. Of course it's a fucking obnoxious American that does it.
Yeah, so if I can remember, basically he was there visiting a friend who was teaching English there. He happened to be out and about, and around those reactors he saw this strange apparently the creature swooped down, and he had to protect this young woman he was with his jacket and covered his head.
Of course the American says that he's the hero. Of course that he says that he's the gentleman that protects the woman.
He heard this train-like screech. Very consistent with other
a loud
stories.
whooshing sound and a terrible screeching.
And then he single-handedly stopped the train with his own bare hands and then shot it twice.
As he looked up, he saw this black figure with wings with glowing red eyes look down at him, and then he went home and thought nothing about it, as you would, until his friend called him and told him about the meltdown of the reactor, which is where he saw that creature. Because he was strolling with a young woman past the nuclear reactor.
Dude, that's a frat boy
just
story.
As you do. You just walk past nuclear reactors on casual strolls with your day.
Yeah, that sounds like a response to somebody saying, like, oh, yeah, I had a good vacation. What happened on your vacation? And then they tell all these amazing things they did. And then this person responds, I saw a demon, and I protected a lady, and I put my jacket over, I fucking shot a train, and,
it was summer. Right. I don't know why I had a jacket.
Yeah. The jacket protected her from a monster that's like 12 feet long. Absolutely logical. Shut the fuck up. This whole thing.
Hey, dude, we came from a culture that if you get under your desk, a nuke cannot affect you. So
yeah, obviously.
So where I'm going with this, and
I chose my grave in those situations. Sorry.
And Cribza, you can tell me. I mean, I know you're a huge Mothman fan. Since I started doing research, I'm a big fan of the lore and the mythos around the creature. I think it's a really cool story. As I read through these occurrences, where my brain goes is the majority of the sightings have been post Mothman movie. And have
even
been
more recently, since the resurgence in popularity with Mothman, with things like Fallout 76
and with cryptids in general.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Cryptozoology has had like this huge upswell in popularity recently, as like people being quirky show it off as their thing.
Yep.
I take full credit. I am themed around cryptids. I'm not the most convinced person of cryptids.
Okay.
No, but it's a fun topic.
You don't have a long enough ponytail for that.
Yeah.
He did at one point.
It's true. It would be super...
Really?
It's super interesting to think about cryptids existing. Like, if they did, the world is cooler. And I'll live my life under the impression that, hey, maybe I'll see a cryptid someday. And at that point, well, there's my proof.
Well,
so under a similar mind, could cryptids exist? And it's weird to say that as a whole because there's so many different cryptids of so many different things. But could an entity like Mothman exist? Could an entity like Bigfoot exist? Things like that. And the answer is a resounding guess, right?
Maybe,
Like,
yeah.
it is possible.
No, I don't want to say maybe. I say yes.
Yeah, it's possible that they could. I'm in the same realm with aliens. I can't believe in this vast universe that we are the only planet to inhabit
exactly.
like advanced life, and I love the concept. Now, when it comes to aliens like visiting Earth, and I'm a little more like skeptical about it because I'm like, we're not that interesting, really. We kind of suck.
Why would aliens want to deal with us?
Yeah, and the same thing comes here. Like, yeah, Mothman exists. Sure. Why is he just showing up right before disasters happen and scaring people? Like, that doesn't seem like a cool thing to do at all.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like the opposite of helping. Except in Freiburg, where it was like an hour before the mine exploded, apparently.
Yeah. So one of my biggest hurdles here is that, for one, people under stress go through very extreme mental and physical changes, and things like hallucinations are not uncommon. Because a person needs to rationalize irrational things.
Exactly.
And the thing is like I said, I love the concept of Mothman. I love the idea of it. The marketing team is fucking fantastic. I think all around, like there's a part of me that's like, hell yeah, like, you know, big scary Mothman that gives you an omen to disaster. Like that, these are things that exist in the past. Omens are a real thing, whether they be creatures, certain environmental effects, things like that.
Yeah.
We pay attention to them.
Yeah, the tide going all the way out, like way past where you can see it, or normally does. That's a bad omen, but it's a bad omen because that's what happens before a tsunami.
Right. Okay. Right. Exactly. So
omens absolutely have a basis in reality. But not all of them.
But how we approach those omens is different, because of times of great stress where you could hallucinate something like that before. Like, you may have an innate ability to like detect the stress in your. Have you ever been around a bunch of people who are under stress, like something's gonna go bad, like I feel like something's bad, like oh look, I'm gonna use a real life example. Like, my company just recently went out of business. I'm losing my job, but before that, like, things were going great, and you could feel it. You could feel that shit every day. You walked into the building, you were like, damn, something's going wrong. And you can feel off of people, but like, it's not like there was a monster rolling in the door being like, blah, I'm gonna tear your walls down. And that's the thing, is like, people handle it in different ways.
I've seen customers at your place from, boy, man, there's some monsters who would tear the walls down.
You know, the best part is I can tell those bitches to get the fuck out now. Anyway, so the point is that how we approach things in real life can vary. How we intercept them and experience them is also very different. I mean, think about the person you know that's like, my crystal told me that Jupiter's misaligned and I better not, take a date today. I'm not even looking to like razz those people, but the reality is like, everybody can come up with a reason why, and a reason to pay attention to something, and a reason to tell a story for why these things happen. And that's how I feel about Mothman. Like, I made a joke. I made a very drunken joke in the first episode about trying to like get out of trouble with their parents about their sexual awakening and like being out too late, their curfews too late, that sort of shit. But that same thing applies. Like bad things happen and we don't know how to explain them. Chernobyl happened for a lot of reasons, but to the average person, they don't know the reason. They go, no, damn.
It's a scientific fact that, or not. I mean, I say it's a fact, but it's almost an unknown thing about what trauma does to the mind. Like it causes some crazy reactions within our brain. And that's why you hear so many of these paranormal phenomena, so many of these cryptid phenomena that center around some kind of trauma. In Mothman, it's a bridge collapse, a nuclear meltdown, or whatever, and people that are around them. Now, some of it, like when I think about the Fukushima thing, that's like, oh, I want attention, right? But for the people who are involved in the scenarios, it really is like you said, it's a way to let me rationalize what happened with something that's totally out of this world to make it make sense to me, even though it doesn't make sense in reality whatsoever. And that you see it all the time with ghosts and aliens and everything else.
Now, like, I'm gonna plus one both of you, all three of you on this. Like, yeah, like it's people like there's multiple episodes where I say this: the human mind is fucking capable of amazing things.
More than we know.
More than we know.
Comprehending itself.
And except using proper night vision cameras when you're trying to capture a ghost or any other.
We only have cameras in 144p, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, for some reason we can never catch an FBA with a clear fucking picture, and it's 2023.
I don't know. I saw a clear HD recording of a man in black at a desk in office.
Yeah, it's just like, but I'll take the role of the skeptic on it. Is if and this is kind of a cop out suggestion on notion on it, but it's also and fucking at me at the comics. I don't give a fuck about this. This is what religion does too. Like it's a matter of they always just chalk it up to like, oh, faith, or you just don't know, or da we might not under blah blah blah.
There is only one explanation where these sightings could be real, but it presupposes the existence of another thing that is not provable. The only way in my head I can rationalize how this could be possible
is a tulpa.
Seeing a bird, which is why it's the only one where it's described as white. After that, it enters the public consciousness, and it gets warped by that because it's scary. And
mass hysteria.
Traditionally, scary things are darker colored in media. And
this is you're talking about like a good old fashioned game of telephone.
Exactly.
But
the details change. It gets bigger. Its wings get wider. It's louder.
Like when I talk about my penis.
It has an S on its chest.
Yeah, exactly.
From the planet Krypton. Yeah.
And somehow, if tulpas exist, we manifest it with the ability to predict disaster for some reason. That is the only possible explanation, but that presupposes that I believe tulpas actually exist.
I appreciate you going with that, by the way. I'd like
to. I mean, it makes perfect sense. We talked about that in the Tulpas episode. Is like, it sounds like bullshit, right? But there are things we can't explain, and there are things that happen that could be the result of hundreds of thousands of people believing in them enough, right?
Exactly. Our brains emit waves. That's just a fact, and we don't necessarily understand every effect those waves have on everything around us.
Is that why only certain people see it and other people don't? You think?
Honestly, it could be like maybe someone's got not enough beta wave activity, and that's why they're able to see this.
I mean, it's hard to chase down because as you go into more modern situations, more social media driven, like attention seeking people, because that's the thing. Is like the generations of people before weren't like they weren't necessarily, the majority of people were not there to seek attention. They don't give a shit. Like I live in my little town, I do my things, whatever. I don't fucking care. I feel like the story started out with the intention to get out of trouble. And it spread unintentionally. And then as you go further into the future, you have people who are like, Chernobyl? Let me tell you a story about this thing I heard about. Fukushima?
For the record, I'm on Steven's side with his notion, by the way. Like, yeah. I 100% agree with Steven.
Yeah. I just like the thing is, the problem is if there is a modicum, even a modicum of possibility that this is real, manifested, whatever, in actuality, it is drowned out by modern society's like obsession with attention. Yeah, absolutely. How would you know? Mm-hmm. No one took a picture. There's not enough people to corroborate, and even the Chernobyl stuff. It's behind the Iron Curtain. Who's going to argue with you? Who's going to fucking argue with you? Oh, you were in Russia back then? I don't really want to be like, you're lying, man who escaped the Iron Curtain. You know, it's not really fair.
I hate misinformation like the next person. Like I really do. And I'm no conspiracy theorist. In fact, I actually make fun of conspiracy theorists more than anyone. But at the same time, I also do not believe that our government is perfect or any government is perfect and that they do hide shit. So like I am selective about things that I believe or don't believe.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do I believe that they're turning the frogs gay? Absolutely not. Do I
It's possible.
like, do I believe that there was a pedophile ring under a pizza place? Something Hillary sucks.
Maybe.
Like, yeah, no, I clearly don't believe it. But do you remember back in 2020 when everything was just going to shit, and then the government literally told us, yeah, UFOs, aliens, and we are just like, I don't care. It's just there. It's aspects like that I do believe that they're hiding, but I do not believe these elaborate stories. And I say it consistently in every episode. Like, I want it to be true. It would make the world a lot more interesting if it was. However, it's most likely not, in my opinion. And if you're a firm believer, and Crip said, I don't know if you're a firm believer or not. I just know you love Mothman.
I really love him. I want a single photo of this creature where you can actually see red eyes.
Full HD.
There is not a single photo where it is not just a black mass flying. So it could just be any kind of bird.
Yep.
If I see a photo with big red glowing eyes, I will be like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. There is a distinct possibility now.
I'll dress up for you. I'll send you a picture.
Thank you. Work? I appreciate it.
All right. All right. With that, Ryan, I want you to take us on the way out the door. I want you to wrap this up like you are trying to stay childless. Let's go.
All right. Cribshead, man, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. Not only one, but 2 episodes in a row and talking to us about Mothman. You're a wealth of knowledge on the subject, and we were lucky to have you. So, thank you so much.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on. If you ever need a specialist in Canadian cryptids as well,
there's Canadian cryptids.
There's Canadian cryptids.
Yeah. I appreciate it. I don't think there's a market for it, but
I know it's not nearly worth the American dollar of cryptids. Let's go.
Challenge accepted. I will get my pitch meeting started tomorrow.
Okay, let's do this.
Me and you, Cripshead. Let's go. We're gonna do Canadian the friendliest cryptids ever.
All right, boys.
I would love to have you back for another episode.
Yeah.
I know Steven's trying to get out of here. He's got to pee real bad. He's got his IBS and all that. But
bruh, I'm not that old. Like, all I'm gonna say is, God damn it, this has been a wonderful time. Thank you for choosing us to actually share your knowledge with. Let's go. Did you say skill diff, you motherfucker? I can see the chat right now. Anyways, the point is I appreciate you being here. We're glad to be back from our hiatus. Look forward to us being on a more weekly basis again. And even though we joke about it, it's genuinely been about a month or so since we've been at this bad boy.
Hey, anyway, thanks for a great night tonight. Remember, you can check us out on Chaos Included TV on Instagram, Twitter, and all other socials. And check out our merch at chaoticpubcast.com.